Hey, Lorenzo here with KSP Next, episode 33, where we launch a research station, the first research station, appropriately named Station 1. Here we have the rocket. The first station module is hiding in the fairing. You will also notice there are three Kerbals in the bottom right. And this core is powered by 5 F1 engines. It's basically the same rocket we've launched a couple times already, except this time with a heavy station module on top of it, and of course a 3-man capsule. We'll be doing several launches this episode, so I will be skipping through them faster and faster. This is incidentally the first time we're launching a rocket with 3 people on board, and something I should note as well is that the building of the station took place before, during, and after the lunar missions of the past episodes. As you can see, as you will see, there are several launches and food management, and if you leave a few Kerbals in the space station, they have for months and months of food. But then you need to work out that your new rocket construction doesn't take too long, and that was quite a dance. Anyway, here we are. We're going for a polar orbit because this is going to be a research base, and being a polar orbit, it will eventually see all the biomes on Earth. That's the thinking, anyhow. I'm not going to put it at the lowest possible altitude of 140 kilometers. I'm putting it at 400 by 700 kilometers. The idea was 500 by 500, but 4 by 7, why not? The thinking here is that that leaves some room below and of course above it for rendezvous maneuvers. I can launch a resupply mission into a 200 by 200 orbit and then have more flexibility in catching up with it. I can go faster and slower, not just slower. Right, so there we go. We getting our first look at the station here. It's fairly small because, a real solar system and all. It's got 2 station research modules, and they generate science on their own and can be repeated a couple of times with different scientists. Before we go further with the station, let's dispose of this upper stage. We don't want to clutter our station's orbit with a lot of rocket junk that will crash into it inevitably. So I fitted the upper stage with an RCS system, and there is still quite a bit of fuel in it. And without the station's payload, this thing even has, I can see 4 kilometers per second of delta V left. Probably would be enough to do a soft landing if that was something that this upper stage was outfitted to do, which it's not. So it's just going to light its engines and haul ass out of there and burn up. That's happening right now. Here, back at the station, we can see a bunch of solar panels, a hideously offset docking port. I apologize to everyone in the whole world for that. The aforementioned science modules, and of course the return capsule. At this point, the return capsule is about a third of the station, so yeah, it's small, but we'll fix that. First, though, we are going to launch some supplies to it. It's a couple of months later, and we can see in our life support monitoring thing that the 3 Kerbals up in space have been chomping away at their rations of food and water. Here at the bottom, station 1, that's the one. It's just got about 13 days of water left. Fortunately, the resupply vessel is launching. If this were to fail, of course, they can come back to Earth. There is a re-entry capsule for all 3 Kerbals. This, incidentally, is the first ship that's launching with the assistance of solid rocket boosters, silently developing that tech on the side. You will also notice that this stage is powered by just the 1 F1 engine. It's a fairly small rocket, but because food and water aren't so heavy. Here we have Valentina approaching the station. I skipped over all the ascent and the initial phases of rendezvous. This is 10 times accelerated to show you the actual intercept maneuvers. The ship here has been designed with supplemental station operation in mind as well. It's got more solar panels than it needs itself, but it can supply some power to the station while it's attached to it. Of course, its fuel tanks will also serve as fuel tanks. The engines this thing has are service module engines. That means they have infinite relights, but require a heavier type of tank, and their specific impulse isn't as good. But we don't need to go all the way to Mars, we just need to fine-tune our approach to the station. So for that purpose, this suffices greatly. For the last couple of meters in fine-tuning, we switch to RCS. We're just 30 meters away by now. So let us slow time back down and observe that final docking approach. Incidentally as well, this is going to be the first docking maneuver of this space program. So there's quite a lot of firsts involved in this, well, so far not that complicated station building. We launched a ship with 3 Kerbals, now we have a ship with 4, and we're doing our first docking. So that's a whole lot of first contracts to cash in on. Alright, starting to look a little bit more like a station, but it's still basically 2 spaceships docked together with a science module in between. Now that we've put some supplies in here, we need to reduce the amount of mouths to feed, because otherwise the space program would be completely busy with resupplying the station. The build time of the resupply rocket, as small as I could get it, would be about the same time that the Kerbals had on the amount of delivered supplies. So we're taking back down 3 of the 4 Kerbals up there. The 4th, of course, can have a earthbound capsule in the form of the resupply ship that is re-enterable, but the 3 others are leaving right now. They are bringing a minimum of snacks for the way home, and this capsule has been outfitted with 4 small additional fuel tanks for the RCS thrusters, so that it might just make a re-entry burn. It also got 4 small solid boosters for the same purpose. The idea of this is that I didn't need to add a other rocket stage. I could just slightly beef up the integrated capacities of the pod. Separating from the station now and turning retrograde. Actually turning prograde, but the rockets are firing in the other direction, so you know that works. And counting down 3, 2, 1, firing the rockets at some point or another, you know, never quite sure when that happens. There we go, rockets firing. These are tiny boosters. You can see the acceleration is not crazy, but you know, it's always cool to have retro boosters rather than just extra RCS fuel tanks. Of course, we also have extra RCS fuel tanks, and here we go, lowering the periapsis down into the atmosphere to about, I think we do about 60 kilometers. We're at 160 now, so that'll be like a minute or 2 more. We'll not show that, but you can see everything is going fine. This is the same capsule and heat shield that successfully did lunar re-entries, so the re-entry itself didn't really pose a problem. It was pretty though, because we were re-entering right along the evening line. Apart from some fire anomalies at the front of the capsule, don't know what was up with that, but it did seem really pretty. There's the heat shield crashing and the pod landing in the evening. 3 Kerbonauts back from the station. Speaking of the station, we have just 1 scientist up there, and we can see in the life support screen that with all the supplies that have been delivered, he's good for more than a year. So that gave us the time to do a moon mission. To see that, check out the previous episodes. But after that year, here we go with Jebediah Kerman doing another supply run, because even though the year has been nice, the supplies are running out and our scientist is getting fretful. This is the same rocket that Valentina launched on, except of course it's daytime, so I'm going to show you a little bit of its goodness. Incidentally, with a polar orbit, it is always necessary to pay attention to which direction you're going to launch, because it could be south or north, depending on which side of the orbit your launch site happens to cross under. Don't make mistakes with that, kids. Anyway, Jebediah is ascending into the clouds. We know what rocket launches look like, so let's skip forward to the rendezvous. This is again the same ship that Valentina used in the previous mission, but of course, as I said already, a year later. So we're on a intercept course already. These ships turn out to have plenty of delta V for maneuvering. Unfortunately, this rendezvous and docking happened mostly at night, which was a challenge for sure, but also didn't deliver the best pictures. Here, if you look really closely, you can make out the silhouette of the station with 2 docked ships on either side. In the daytime, it looks like this. So now, for some reason, I really like this, where there's two identical ships docked to a central thing. We're basically balancing fuel and supplies, so we have a full station and a nearly empty ship heading back. Jebediah here is just the truck driver. He's leaving the scientist with a fresh load of supplies and water and going back to the planet himself, just so that the station can remain occupied. Here he goes, disconnecting the ship again at night. I don't know why I do these things. I must enjoy the additional challenge. I don't know. Anyway, bim bam boom, there's 340 meters per second remaining in the ship, which is more than enough for a cozy re-entry burn, which is exactly what's going to happen. Jebediah is going to properly orient the ship, overshooting a little bit, but you know what the hell, we have plenty of maneuvering fuel as well. This close to Earth, resources are not quite in short supply. So that's definitely a change of pace from the lunar missions with limited ignitions, limited delta V, stress and fear. Now we're right close to Earth, so everything will be fine. We're even angling our capsule down to accelerate the re-entry because 8 Gs wasn't enough for Jebediah, and you know, he is Jebediah. So there we go, one capsule back in the ocean. That's the third station mission concluded. Yeah, one launch, two resupply. So what's next? Next time we're going to, of course, expand the station. Again, about a year later, we're launching a beefier rocket, this time similar to the one that launched the first station core. 5 F1 engines, boosting another, I think it was 30 or 40 ton station module. You'll also notice there's again 3 Kerbals going up with a 3-man capsule that can bring back a lot of Kerbals, and of course serve as temporary habitation for them as well. Here we go, separating the first stage and giving you the first glimpse of this this station module. You can see it's oblong and cylindrical. Yes, this is the research module. There is a research lab in it, and a hitchhiker storage container for Kerbals, and of course a set of docking ports. We've got the upper stage that will provide most of the kick to orbit, in fact all of the kick to orbit, and then we have a smaller third stage that is basically used for maneuvering the station part into the proper, well, towards the station for docking, you know. And I was planning to also deorbit the upper stages here, but that didn't work out because there was a problem with the control authority on it. I'm accelerating here, didn't show the final upper stage because, you know, again, everything is in the darkness, but we had plenty of delta V, and we are now approaching the station 200 meters away on full RCS. This time I think I waited until we would enter the daylit side because this fairly big, yeah, 31-ton station module was a little bit hard to maneuver. So here we go. We've got the science lab, some solar panels, and the living space, and the 32-ton station module there. So that's going to be a 65-ton station all in all, including the escape capsule. So that's already something to note. That's bigger than any single payload we've launched. So this piece of orbital construction was actually required. That's nice, I think. Here we go. First attempt a failure. Second attempt also a failure. Let's reset. Third attempt, and maybe, yeah, third attempt. No. Let's reset again. Well, we've still got a couple of minutes of daylight, so get some separation going again and approach the station again, nice and careful. Fourth attempt, yeah, there we go. We are a station now, extending the extra solar panels, and it's time to do some crew management. Now the science lab, that's a nice one. You can tag science in there, and it will research based on the amount of scientists there is and the amount of science points you put into the module. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of science instruments on the station as of yet, just the science laboratories themselves. So in the follow-up couple of missions to the station, I am going to, well, add a whole bunch of science experiments, so then we can load it up on Earth observing science, fill the science lab to its capacity, and harvest science from that for years with the eventual resupply mission. This is the state of the station so far. That research module is fast coming up, and we will use this knowledge to also power say long-term semi-permanent missions like a cruise around the sun or first a year around the moon, stuff like that. Not landing, but staying in orbit, doing a lot of science and accelerating technologies for the future. That's coming in the future. Another thing I didn't get to in the moon episode is that the lander that I used on the moon also works on Mars. The ascent module doesn't work on Mars, not quite, but the descent module gets you down to Mars perfectly fine propulsively. I'm not sure what to do with that. Maybe I'll do nothing with that. Maybe I'll do something with that. But that's just a tidbit. Anyway, we've built a space station today. Let me know what you think about it. And as always, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.